The business trip was over, and tomorrow he could go home. No, he could have left today, but Louis decided not to force his departure. Especially since leaving today did nothing for him, he would be home tomorrow morning. When leaving here tomorrow, he would arrive home in the evening by 7 o'clock. Before going to bed, he called his wife and said, "I will be there tomorrow evening about 7 o'clock. "Very good. So you'll be home tomorrow?" "Yes, darling. I'll be back tomorrow. Are you all right?" "What could be wrong with me? I've worked today. Tomorrow's Friday, and I get to see the man I love." "Thanks, sweetie. See you tomorrow." Louis disconnected his phone. Liliana put her phone on the table she was sitting at, stood up, looked around the kitchen, and decided what else she needed to pick up. In the hallway stood her packed belongings packed in various boxes. She had been waiting for this day for a month, but her husband kept failing to go on a long business trip. And finally, 10 days ago, he told her, "Honey, I'm going on a business trip for 10 days. It's a lot of work, and I can barely fit it in." "Oh, that's okay. I have a lot to do around the house, too, and I'll try to fit it into those 10 days, too." The next day, after Louis left, Liliana started packing her things. Another day later, a car came, and the packed things were taken to her lover Santiago's cottage. Today was leaving, and she quit her job quickly, as she had been preparing for this departure for a very long time. Liliana met Santiago at a conference where she was sent for 3 days. She learned practically nothing new there, but she did get to know Santiago. Santiago, a successful entrepreneur, divorced, lived in this city in his cottage. During the conference, as soon as the empty speeches began, boring and dull, Liliana had an excuse to escape from there. The whole point of being there was gone. As it happened, there were no people of interest to her there. As soon as she slowly left the hall, she heard a good-natured voice. "I see you couldn't stand the emptiness either." Liliana looked around and saw him, she replied. "This report that is going on now, this same speaker read it a year ago. He didn't change a single word of it. He seems to know it by heart." "What makes you think this report will continue to be like that?" "Because the charts and graphs he put up as visual aids are the same as they were before, and behind it is the speaker's report, and last year, and on the same topic. What am I wasting my time for? I'd rather go shopping." "Z, you know, as an aborigine, I suggest we go to the cafe and have breakfast first, and then I'll show you around the mall. And let me introduce myself, Santiago. Nice to meet you, Liliana." Liliana said yes. They got into Santiago's car, and he drove her to a beautiful restaurant. A table was set for them, and they had a delicious breakfast. When breakfast was finished, it turned out that the restaurant belonged to Santiago. After a late breakfast, they drove to the shopping center, where it turned out that Santiago owned several boutiques. Liliana couldn't resist asking him, "So you're a local capitalist?" "No, I'm just an entrepreneur." They had lunch at another restaurant, also owned by Santiago. In the evening, Santiago invited Liliana to have dinner at his house, and she accepted. That's when their passionate love began. For 3 months, the affair had been going on. Liliana was crazy about him, but always remembered her husband. And then, unexpectedly, Santiago proposed to her, saying, "I respect your husband and envy him, but I'm in love with you, and I can't live without you. And I ask you to leave your husband for me. We'll be the happiest couple. I don't know if leaving would hurt my husband. I'm torn between him and you too. I don't even know how to tell him we're over, and I can't anticipate his reaction. I think he's capable of doing unpredictable things. I mean, he's ex-military. I'm not afraid, and I think we can do this calmly. He'll go away on a business trip, and you'll move in with me. He won't think to look for you in the regional center, and he'll look for you in your town. In a month, he'll calm down. You'll call him, and you'll apply to the registry office for divorce. But you have to file together." "Not exactly. First, you and I go. You write the application. Call him. He'll come with the papers, sign your application. In a month, you'll be divorced, and we can register our marriage." "That's a good idea, but I'm still worried about him. When you move in with me, call a friend and tell her to be at his place that night, to be supportive, and then call you back and tell you how he reacted to it." Louis put the phone away, sat in the chair in his hotel room, and thought. He'd met Liliana his senior year of high school. Somehow, at some student party, he'd been introduced to the beautiful Liliana, and things had spun at an incredible speed. Soon, Liliana announced that she was pregnant, and it would be a terrible shame for her if she gave birth without her husband. Her parents would not understand her. Then there was the registry office, and then the news that she was wrong. There was no pregnancy. There was just some kind of delay. He accepted the news. So they lived for 6 years. Louis had no special love for Liliana. But he got used to her, although he noticed some disrespect for her. For some reason, she thought that she made him happy, and he had to carry her in his arms. But things were getting better for them. They lived in Louis's parents' apartment. His parents themselves had moved to the village, where they had left the house from his grandfather. The apartment was beautifully repaired, and everything was, good. But somehow there was no love in his life. Waving goodbye, Louis undressed, took a shower, and went to bed. Tomorrow, he had to go home. In the morning, after loading her things into the car that came, Liliana called her friend Gloria back. Gloria, her friend since high school, knew about her affair with Santiago and was terribly jealous of her. "If I meet a man like your Santiago, I'll leave mine without even thinking about it. I know I'd be happy with him. But your Louis, he seems like a good man, a good provider. You wanted to marry him, and he went down like a sweetheart. He was lucky to live with a pretty girl like you. Louis is a good husband too, but Santiago is much better. What about intimacy? It's hard to say, but Louis is pretty good in bed. When you divorce him, I'll try to seduce him. What about your husband? What if Louis is better? I wouldn't risk it. Louis knows you're Antonio, and he can tell him everything. Besides, I'm keeping him as a backup for now. You're so full of shit. You think he'll wait. Of course he will. If I come back, he'll carry me in his arms. So watch this. You're right, I'll end up with no Louis and no Antonio." After calling Gloria back, Liliana said, "I'm going to Santiago's house for good. How I envy you. Does Louis know yet?" "No, I didn't dare tell him. He's on a business trip. He'll be here tonight. I'll ask you to come to our house when he arrives, Antonio. Why? See how he reacts. I'll call you back later, and you can tell me all about it." "I will. What should I tell him about you?" "Nothing. I left him a letter. It says I'm sorry, and that I left him for the man I love, and I'm not going back. So you and Antonio come and sympathize with him, but don't say you knew anything about it. Especially not that I moved to the regional center. He doesn't need to know where to find me." "Okay, I get it. I'll call you back, but tomorrow, so Antonio doesn't hear." Liliana got into the car Santiago had sent. It would take almost 5 hours to get to the region. She thought Louis was in the region too, and this morning he'd gone home. That's where she went to school. That's where she met Louis, and ironically, that's where she met Santiago. She had her first love there, but he dumped her in her senior year, and that's when she met Louis. Louis wasn't too keen on marrying her, so she got tricky. She told him she was pregnant, and the simpleton believed her. She didn't intend to live with him for long, but university was over, her diploma was earned, and Liliana went with Louis to his hometown. Here she settled down very well. Louis's parents gave them an apartment in the center of the city. The gift to Louis for this apartment was made back in the days when he, after the army, went to school. His parents had moved to his parents' cottage in the countryside. Now, leaving, or rather, running away from her husband, she did not feel that she was losing something close to her. She decided to herself that Louis had made the most common mistake of men. He believed that his wife would not go anywhere. He believed that living with him, she was used to comfort, to the fact that he constantly takes care of her, that every day she has a certain amount of money in the account, she is dressed, and well-fed. Perhaps Santiago's appearance in her life was facilitated by her desire to get new thrills and emotions. Louis brought money, was so immersed in work and solving various problems that he did not notice it. It was the desire for something new, happy, and unusual that was growing in her every day. That's when Santiago came to her. Now, going to Santiago, Liliana was leaving for a new life. She was looking forward to new experiences, to happiness, and that her everyday life would be filled with positive emotions and new events. She was waiting for Santiago to make her life even better, even more beautiful than it was with Luis. And so she arrived at her new place of residence. The waiting movers and those who had come to help her with the loading unloaded the car very quickly and drove away. Santiago appeared. He embraced Liliana, kissed her, and asked her, "How was your trip?" "It was fine." "How's your husband?" He hadn't come back from his business trip yet. He called yesterday and said he'd be here by 7 o'clock tonight. I asked a friend to keep an eye on him. I left him a letter so he wouldn't report his wife missing to the police. Did you write where you went? Why? I'll call him in a month and propose a divorce in the registry office, as you advised. I have no claim on his property. I've taken everything I own. I see the whole first floor is full of stuff. Well, that'll keep you busy. Now, let's get changed. Let's go to a restaurant, have dinner, and celebrate the beginning of our life together. The train was approaching the station. Luis slowly got out of the carriage and headed toward home. He decided to walk. In half an hour, he was already near the entrance. He went up to the floor, opened the apartment, threw things in the corridor, and went into the room, found a complete mess left by Liliana. He went into the kitchen. On the table, he saw a letter addressed to him. He took it, but did not read it. He understood everything. He sat down on a chair. His cell phone rang, and he looked at it. It was Gloria. Luis signed and decided to take the call. She immediately announced to him, "Luis, I know everything. Liliana called me today and told me everything. I'm sorry, but I couldn't keep her away. I'm with Antonio, not far away. If you don't mind, we can come in for a minute." Luis didn't even have time to respond, and Gloria had already disconnected the connection. Sighing again, he began setting the table with the appetizers he found in the refrigerator. About 5 minutes later, the front door opened and Gloria walked in, accompanied by her husband Antonio. Like a hospitable host, Luis invited, "Come into the kitchen, I've already set the table." On the table were pickles, lard, sausage slices, zucchini caviar, an open can of Sprats, and brandy glasses. Nearby on the table lay a letter written by Liliana. Gloria appreciated it and asked, "What did she write to you?" "Nothing." "What did she say to you?" "She said she loves someone else, but she can't tell you. She's afraid." I don't bite. If she told me everything, I'd have understood and let her go. But the way she did it, it's not nice. Are you going to look for her? Why? Why would I get in the way? Living with me, she's used to being comfortable. It's obvious that the new man will give her more than I gave her. Aren't you going to fight for her? You don't want her back. I miss her, of course, but I won't grovel and beg her to come back. Even though I love her, it's a comfort to me that she's found happiness. How will you live? In time, I'll settle down. Strangely enough, my life hasn't stopped with her passing. I just need a little time to come to my senses. Let's drink to Liliana's happiness. They drank. Antonio, to lighten the mood, said, "As long as I can remember, I've never snacked on cognac, pickles, and lard. Yes, the best appetizer for cognac is cheese, olives, caviar, salmon, white meat. Fruits, pears, apples, grapes, strawberries are good for cognac. Or as in Armenia, they prefer to serve peaches with cognac. But I've only been in town an hour, and I didn't know what appetizers I had. Gloria, tell me, who did Liliana go to?" Oddly enough, she didn't name him. In fact, she told me she quit her job and checked out of her apartment. The money you had, she split it 50-50. And she won't even contact me on the phone. Said she'd call you back when the time was right. What's the point of this call? Checking to see if I'm still alive or something. Don't say that. I think she's worried about you. Worried about how you'll take it. Tell me, what are you going to do now? Tomorrow's Friday. I was planning on spending the day at home, but now I'm going to work, report for duty. I'll clean up the apartment this weekend. Listen, there's a competition at the city stadium on Saturday. I'm going to watch it with Antonio. You don't want to join us? I don't think so. I don't really feel like celebrating right now. No, I might go out, but I want to be alone. Luis, I know what you mean. Be strong. Thanks, Antonio. Another glass? Why do you pour so much cognac? Antonio, it's just for tonight. I won't drink tomorrow. I don't think I'll be drinking this weekend either. I have to clear my head, go to the village, visit my parents. At that time, Liliana sat with Santiago in his restaurant. On the table were whiskey and dry wine with a fine appetizer. Santiago enjoyed the American whiskey. He drank a little at a time, snacking on cheese and grilled meat. Liliana had red wine in front of her, which she drank with pleasure in small sips. The music began to play, and Santiago invited Liliana to a slow dance. Their couple looked beautiful on the dance floor. The evening ended, and they returned to Santiago's cottage. Morning came. Luis wasn't planning to go to work, but unexpectedly, he got a call from Carlos, the general manager, who said, "Luis, good morning." "Good morning, Carlos. I know you're back. The customer told me the work is done. I'd like to see you at work today. I realize you have some time off, but you can use it later. Come to the office at 10 o'clock. We need to talk." Luis got up, quickly shaved, showered, dressed, and in 40 minutes he was entering the CEO's office. He was reading some paper and gestured to him to have a seat. Then he put the paper aside, took off his glasses, put them on the table, and said, "Do you know what I was reading? It's hard to say, but the paper is stamped. It's a doctor's report on the state of my health and recommendations on how I should live my life. The recommendations must be followed. And the recommendation is to quit your job, go to the country. Sit on the shore of the lake with a fishing rod and enjoy the peace. Do you know what a beautiful lake is near my country house? The forest. There are such beautiful mushrooms growing there." And what did they find? "Cardiology. I've been doing a little checkup. I've had some shots, some supportive treatments. But that's not the main thing. I consulted with my daughter and decided to step down. I'm resigning as CEO, and I'm appointing you to take my place. You've been my deputy for 5 years now." "Yes, I became your deputy as soon as I graduated from university. I can't deny I've been following you closely all this time. I've been watching you since you were a third-year student. Let me tell you, there are wolves among us. But you're a big wolf. You can lead a pack. After all, you and I, thanks to your advice, have become the strongest organization in our area. So you have the weekend to think about who you're gonna put in your place. And remember, you work with that person. It might not even be someone on our staff. It's all so sudden. On the contrary, it's expected. I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay on the board, but my daughter Clarice will be in charge. You know her. She had 50% of the vote. Now she'll have 100. She'll be the one to oversee your work. You'll be taking my cases on Monday. If anyone wants to quit because of the change in leadership, don't. Luis, start your own team. What's there to say? You've already got one. I wouldn't be surprised if you put Miguel as your chief engineer." "No, Miguel, the chief engineer, is in his place. I need him as an engineer, not as an organizer. He needs a pay raise and more authority. I guess you're right, but you have engineering skills too." "Are you insulting me? I'm an engineer by training." "Okay, I won't keep you now. You can rest until Monday." Back home, Luis decided to do some work on his apartment. He decided to remodel the kitchen. He had been planning it for a long time, and today he called his buddy Gustavo and invited him over. Gustavo was in the apartment renovation business. They took measurements of all 3 rooms and the kitchen together. A piece of advice immediately followed. "I would sell this apartment without renovations. I can see it's in excellent condition. Plumbing, heating, everything is new. It's in the center. It'd be gone in a couple days. And believe me, at a great price. Gustavo, I have the money. I don't want to sell it. I grew up here. Besides, if I sell the apartment, where will I live? Our normal capitalists build their cottages in a cottage community. As far as I know, your firm is also building there. How is Carlos, by the way? Is he still atrocious?" "What do you mean, atrocious?" "Well, he's taken out all the competition. Without him, no one in this village would put a nail in a wall. I hate to say this, Gustavo, but as of Monday, Carlos is leaving. There will be a new director. And who's that, if it's no secret? I've been offered the position. Nice. Congratulations. It's a strong firm. Liliana must be jumping up and down, huh?" "No, she's not. She found a date, packed up her stuff while I was away on business, and took off. You can see the rooms are half empty. She even took some of the furniture. I'm sorry, I didn't know. It's kind of sudden. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. Drink. I'm at work. They discussed the details of the renovation. They agreed on a payment plan. On the cost, they decided that Gustavo would draw up an estimate and bring it to Luis on Monday night for approval. Gustavo talked him into doing the whole apartment. Luis decided he could stay with his parents for the time being. He had to meet with them anyway and tell them about Liliana running away from him to her lover. Without putting anything off, Luis went to his garage, started the car, and drove to his parents' house. The village where his parents lived was not far away. There was an expressway nearby, and after the exit, it was another 3 kilometers to it. The house of his parents, located on a hill, was visible from far away. Luis drove up to the house. He opened the gate and drove the car into the yard. From behind the barn, his father came out with a hammer in his hands. He said cheerfully, "Here comes the help. Where's Liliana? Did she sneak into the house already?" "No, Dad. I came alone." "Too bad you're alone. My daughter-in-law hasn't been here all summer. We planted potatoes and she didn't show up. But in the spring, the pig was slaughtered and she was there. So she came for the good stuff. She was eating the scraps, that's all you could hear. That's it, Dad, she won't come back." "Did something happen?" "She ran away from me to her lover while I was on a business trip." "What a mess. Maybe it's for the best." "Yeah, I think it's for the best. It's like the song says, if a bride runs away to another man, you don't know who's lucky." "All right, what's up with you?" "I'm thinking of renovating my apartment, updating everything, change the furniture." "So you have a normal apartment, right?" "Dad, she arranged everything there, and I don't think it's right. I want it the way I want it. So I'm gonna stay with you for 10 days. You do that. Now get changed and come to the table." Luis' mom came out of the house. "I heard what you guys were talking about. She's gone. She loved herself too much." Luis spent Saturday and Sunday at his parents' house. There was plenty of work to do. Cleaned up the vegetable garden. Picked cucumbers, which he picked every morning, and didn't miss home at all. On Saturday, Antonio went to the market to buy groceries. Gloria took advantage of his absence and dialed Liliana's number. She answered right away. "Liliana, hi. Can you talk?" "Yes, of course. Santiago is a businessman. He's on his way to the office. Like you asked, we went to Lopez's place right after he got here. I could barely get my retarded ass to go." "Oh, I see. So how's he taking it?" "He's worried. He's upset that you didn't tell him, but he said he won't stand in the way of your happiness. That obviously your new man will give you more than he's given you." "What's he like?" "He's kind of quiet, doesn't talk much. Funny to say, he used to eat cognac with pickles and lard. Even Antonio noticed it. They're all gourmets in the village. Pickle is the best appetizer for any drink, although they prefer moonshine." "What else did he say?" "He said he'd miss you, but he'd calm down in time. He just needed a little time to recover and even offered to drink to your happiness. And he wasn't planning on looking for me." "No, there was no such conversation, although he did ask me who you left. I told him, as we agreed, that I didn't know. And I invited him to the city stadium today to watch the competition." "And what did he say?" "He said he was going to the village to visit his parents, but you can tell he's really upset." "Why don't you tell me how it's going?" "I'm fine. Santiago blows me away. He does everything I want him to do. I realize it's still a fling, of course. I haven't informed my parents yet that I left Luis. They wouldn't be interested. My mom once told me, 'It's your life, sweetheart.' I envy you. Listen, do you have any oligarchs in mind? Don't be silly, you have a normal man. By the way, where is he?" "He went to the market to buy groceries. He'll be here soon. We have a market nearby. Then we'll go to the stadium to cheer for someone. Then the usual program, beer and kebabs. But I lie, the beer will start at the stadium. And tomorrow we'll sleep it off. We have to work on Monday. That's how the weekend will go. And you, what will you do?" "Today and tomorrow, I'll go through my things and tidy up. There's a 3-story cottage here. I can't describe it. I haven't been all over it yet. It has its own bathhouse, swimming pool. When you're in the regional center without Antonio, I'll show you around. Okay, well, if there's any news, you call me. Don't forget. Gloria turned off the phone and went to pack for the stadium. Liliana threw the phone on the table, sighed contentedly. Things seemed to be getting better. Louis would calm down in a month. She could skip down to the neighborhood, file for divorce at the registry office, then call him to come over and sign too. And then, in another month, she's free. Then Santiago wouldn't be going anywhere from her. Now she wondered whether she should wear a white dress and veil to the wedding. Having solved the dress problem that had been plaguing her, Liliana went to sort through her drawers of clothes. She resorted them and put them in the closets. Santiago called and said, "Liliana, I sent a car for you. Let's go and have lunch at our restaurant." "Santiago, it's Saturday. Are you going to work?" "No. After lunch, we'll go to a nightclub, party till 11, and then we'll have dinner at home." "That's great. I'm gonna go." Monday, Louis woke up early. He had to go to work, and he had to be there as a CEO who was doing well. Moreover, he knew that the rumor that his wife had run away from him to her lover would spread around the city. Some unmarried ladies would show up right away. It should be taken into account that he is not only the general director, but also an enviable bachelor with a 3-room apartment in the city center. Although not divorced yet, he could not be considered a bachelor. He decided to wait for the divorce. It's only 2 months. He got up, had a quick breakfast, told his parents, "I'll come in the evening at 8 o'clock. If I decide to spend the night, I'll call you back." He put on a fresh shirt and suit, and 15 minutes before the start of the working day, he entered the reception area, where Clarisse, the main founder of the company, was sitting with the secretary. He said a friendly hello and asked, "Is Carlos in?" "No, he won't be in today. Come into the office. You're the CEO now. We'll be handing things over to you by committee." "Who's on the committee?" "Me, the chief engineer, and the chief accountant." "What about Carlos?" "If he was, there wouldn't be a problem." "What about him?" "He's a little sick." "Nothing serious, I hope." "I hope so, too." They went into the general director's office, followed by the chief engineer and the chief accountant. Quite quickly, they checked all the documents at the director's disposal and drew up a report. They signed a bunch of other papers necessary to take office. Finally, Clarisse and Louis were alone, and he asked, "What happened to Carlos anyway?" "He had a heart attack. I went to see him this morning. They wouldn't let him in, said he's fine, but he's gonna be in intensive care for 10 days. Only they won't let visitors in because he felt his time was up. Asked to pay special attention to the facility, overhaul of the sanatorium, building number 1. Clarisse, I'm aware of the problem, and it's almost solved. The designer made a mistake. We talked about that mistake during the engineering phase. It took a long time to resolve, but our chief engineer found a new solution, and they submitted it to the designer for approval." "That's great. Sounds like there's nothing to worry about." "Yes, we do." "What are they?" "I met with Carlos on Friday, and he promised me a raise for the chief engineer. I'm aware of that, and the staffing levels have been revised since this morning. I think we'll have a decision by tonight. And for the past month, he'll get a raise. Why don't you tell me who you're thinking of putting in your place?" "Clarisse, you know her. She's the lead specialist for our competitor, and I'm meeting with her today. She should be here in half an hour." "You mean Helga?" "I'm talking about Helga. Listen, she's a great choice, but will she work for me?" "Not you. I'm the CEO." "Have you known her long?" "Yeah, I met her when she was a sophomore in college." "I understand you weren't married then. You dated her." "Yeah, I dated her." "What are you planning on reconnecting? I know your wife ran away from you." "I'm technically still married, but I'm not asking her out because I'm going to date her. I'm asking her out because she's proven herself to be a real expert, and their firm's insistence on competing with us is a result of her work." "Then why are they losing?" "Because the advice she gives should be properly followed, and they keep her in a secondary role." "Tell me where she crossed you." "My husband has a crush on her." "And what did she do?" "She blew him off so badly, the poor guy almost drank himself to death." "So she didn't try to steal your husband. Why don't you like her?" "What if her husband hits on her again?" "Is that it? You don't think that's enough?" "I wouldn't worry about it. I've only seen your husband at the firm twice while I've been here." "I need her." Okay, it's up to you. Is she okay with it? I'll know. Why not? She'll be here soon and we'll find out. In fact, the secretary reported on the intercom that a woman had come to see Louis. He said let her come in. The door opened and a pretty woman walked into the office. When she saw those present, she said, "Good afternoon. I see you're all here. Helga, come in. Would you like tea or coffee?" What a sly one. He didn't offer me any, and I've been sitting here with him all morning. You're the hostess, aren't you? No, Helga, I'm the founder of the company, but Louis is the boss. Whatever he decides, that's how it's going to be. Do you know why he invited you here? No, Louis didn't say so. Helga, I'm inviting you to join us as my deputy. You've worked long enough at a firm that doesn't appreciate you. What do you say? The summoned secretary came in and Louis asked, Margaret, make us some coffee, if you could. Of course I can. I'll get it right away. Helga said, This is so unexpected, although to be honest, I've been thinking about leaving my firm. They won't pay me. They pass off all my ideas as their own, and they get a nice bonus for it. In general, it's not fair to the employees. How soon can you quit? My contract's expiring. They won't keep me. So you'll do it? Yes, I do, but so there's no ambiguity. I want to talk to you, Clarice. If you're talking about my husband, I know everything. If he bothers you again, just tell me. I'll put him in his place. The secretary brought coffee. They sat down at the coffee table and talked about work. Soon Clarice was packing, and she said, The hiring issue is settled. I'm going to go visit my father. Clarice left. Louis and Helga were left alone. Helga asked, So it was your idea to ask me to come to work for you? Yes, it was. I don't like the fact that you, an expert of the highest caliber, are wasting your time with these mediocrities. You know they don't know what they're doing. Okay, this is about work. What about you? What do you mean? Did your wife run away? Yeah, she ran away, but I'm doing okay. I'm renovating the apartment. When's the divorce? I think she'll start divorce proceedings in a month. I don't know which way she'll go. That's not interesting. How are you? Are you worried? Let's talk about it later. Okay. I can start work in 2 days. That's great. I'll be waiting. Helga left the office and Louis went about his business. At lunchtime, he went to a cafe near the office, where he had gone before. No sooner had he sat down at a table than Gloria appeared. Without asking anything, she sat down across from him and inquired, How was your weekend? Went to my parents' house. Had a drink with my dad. Had a few drinks. How much is a little? A liter for 2 we had. Do you miss Lilian? Did she call? No, she hasn't. I think maybe she'll call back tonight. What are you doing tonight? Why? I'd like to come over to your house. I don't want to leave you alone. Gloria, you have a husband. You should stick with him. He's a real man, and you can't lose sight of him. They'll take him away. You were always there for Liliana, and as you can see, it didn't help. No, it didn't. She just wasn't a real woman. Today, when she left me, she hid. She probably thinks I'm gonna come looking for her. I think she wants me to come to her, crying, begging her not to leave me. I should beat up my lover in a fit of rage. Only I won't do all that. I'm a strong man, and I'm used to winning even in the most hopeless situations. Does that mean you'll make her come back? Why? If you get her back, it's a victory for you in a hopeless situation. Does she love her man that much? I told you I don't know him. I have no knowledge of their relationship, but Liliana's not raised to be infatuated with anyone. But she did, nonetheless. Let's not talk about that. How's Antonio? What's going to happen to him? He's at work now. Then he'll have a beer and he won't need anything. Or he does, but you don't want to see it. What he needs, he gets once a week. Isn't that enough? Or did you just write him off as a man? He doesn't deserve more than that. I don't know, Gloria. One day you'll come home like me, and there's nobody there. That's when you're going to cry. Well, you didn't. I can see you're hanging in there. Gloria, I'm a man. All right, let's order. They ordered lunch, and since it was a standard meal, they were served quickly. Odobedov Louis said goodbye to Gloria, noting for himself not to go to this cafe again. When he returned to work, he called the chief engineer, with whom he was on friendly terms. He showed up at once and began by complaining about the foreman. Louis stopped him and said, "Pedro, I don't need you coming at me from afar. There's a violation, a memo to me, and I'll decide what to do about it. I know this foreman, I know this case, we'll take action. I'll tell you, as a foreman, he's weak. There is no clear organization of work. In general, talking to him, I see that he does not understand what the plan of construction organization is. I have already given the personnel the task to check where he bought his construction diploma. I do not intend to engage in lecturing at the enterprise. Specialists came to me, and I pay them as specialists." "I get it. Hey, tell me, what was Helga doing here this morning?" "You got a crush on her." "You've known me for years. I'm married, and I'm a one-woman man. I see you've already started having affairs." "With who?" "Who was that friend you were with at the cafe? You hadn't even gotten home from lunch, and the whole office was talking about it. That was Gloria, my wife's friend. You know about my wife running away from me. You'd have to be deaf not to hear that. Well, there you go. And Gloria's just following me around, and she's probably telling my wife, and she's pretending to care about me." "You don't believe her?" "Not one bit. I mean, she's just glowing, showing me how smart and cunning she is. I want to talk to her husband. I feel like Gloria is on the path to infidelity herself." "How are you doing?" "I'm fine. You still haven't told me what Helga was doing here." "I brought her in to fill my position as deputy CEO." "Good choice. I was afraid you'd ask me to do it." "Why were you afraid?" "Because I can't say no to you, and I don't want to do paperwork. That's why I've made you chief engineer and expanded your authority. In addition, the staff schedule has been revised, and your salary has gone up significantly." "Thank you for that. But that's not why I asked you here. When Helga goes to work, keep an eye on her. Give her a shoulder to lean on. Where I can make it, I'll help. She's been in a secondary job for a long time, and now she needs to get into management." "Yeah, I'll help, sure. Tell me, how did Clarice take it?" "I was scared to see her too, but I'll tell you, they hit it off." "Does Clarice's husband know Helga's coming to work for us?" "He'll know. Only Clarice said she'd control him, and if he moved, she'd cut off his oxygen. I'm fine on that end. This is different. There's a bid out for a shopping center. It's gonna have underground parking and 4 levels of retail space. Our competitors will be bidding on it. The firm that Helga works for today. The 3 of us will go to the auction. We'll act like Helga's in charge of the bidding." "Why?" "I'm going to flick them on the nose." "You're making them bleed." "Let them bleed, but we have to pick up that order. Also, where are you going now?" "I'm going to the planners to get approval for the renovation of the sanatorium, Building 1. All right, take my company car. You don't have to drive your own. I'll talk to Clarice. We'll get you a company car. I'm not going anywhere these days anyway. When Helga goes to work, you two will share this car." "Pedro's gone." Louis dialed Clarice. She answered quickly. "Any questions yet?" "No, no questions. I was just wondering how Carlos is doing. They said he's fine. He's on IV fluids. They won't let me see him yet, but they got his gear." "Tell me, is he in intensive care in cardiology?" "Yes. Do you want to see your father?" "Of course I do. I'll call you back in about 5 minutes." Louis turned off the phone, ran through the phone book, found the right number, and dialed it. "Go ahead." "Ava, hi. It's Louis, the construction worker." "I knew it. Your director's doing fine." "That's not the issue. I've been appointed to take his place. I have something to discuss with him in front of the principal, and it's urgent." "Good." "Uh-huh. I'll talk to the attending and call you back." 3 minutes later, the phone rings. "Hello, Ava. Louis, you can come in today right now. They'll let you in for 15 minutes. Half an hour later, Louis and Clarice entered Carlos' room. When he saw them, he asked, "What's going on?" Louis briefly described the situation. Carlos approved of everything he suggested and advised. "You orient Helga to bidding on the mall. That's exactly what I did. How are you feeling?" "I'm fine. Just in time to catch you on Friday. Clarissa, how do you feel about Helga being Louis' deputy?" "Dad, it'll be a great trio of executives, Louis, Helga, and Pedro. As for Helga, I met with her and we talked it over. Meanwhile, Gloria was reporting to Liliana. Today, at lunchtime, she met Louis at the cafe. Is he pining? He's been drinking, hasn't he? No, he usually eats lunch at the cafe. You told me so yourself. That's where I met him. So he's back to work. I thought he was taking a vacation. Aren't you going to visit him tonight? I don't know. It'll be hard. He's kind of in the country visiting his parents. Maybe he's found a girlfriend, and the village is just a cover. Oh, Liliana, I don't know. I told him I'd come over tonight so he wouldn't be alone. And what did he say? He turned the conversation to the fact that I have a husband I need to stick by. And I almost told him if he knew how much attention men give me. No, Gloria, he's got a point. Men only pay attention for one reason, and you know what that is. Once they get what they want, they forget about you. I understand that, but Santiago didn't leave you. In fact, he asked you to marry him. Yes, I'm very lucky, but I'm afraid. What are you afraid of, Louis? I'm still emotional. Today it's a positive emotion, but what will happen tomorrow? It could turn into disappointment and boredom overnight. Louis has created a hothouse, comfortable conditions for me, but will Santiago be able to do it now? I'm looking for an answer to that question, and I can't find it. But you say Santiago worships you. He holds you in his arms. Gloria, that's true. But you know, this is all in the fling phase. What happens when it's over? I'm starting to wonder if I'm rushing to ruin a solid family life I've built. I could have left things as they were, lived with Louis, and met Santiago occasionally. Or I could just see Santiago once and forget about him forever. You're so full of shit. I thought you had it all figured out. Why don't you like Santiago? Because I don't know him very well. Santiago may have his own ideas, his own claims and demands that I'll have to put up with and live with. And the other question is, will I accept it? Is that why you control Lopez through me? He's like an armored train on the back burner. That's why you don't want me to get close to him. See, you got it all figured out. What do you want? I want you to find out if he really lives in the village or if it's just a cover. Also, since he's been pretty quiet, he's not looking for me, I'll come with Santiago next week and file for divorce. But there's like 2 people have to file, husband and wife. That's right, but they don't have to be at the registry office at the same time. Very simple. I come, apply, and then leave and call him. He comes to the registry office, signs my statement that does not object, and we're divorced in a month. And what's the reason for the divorce? The registry office isn't interested in that, and it doesn't need to be stated. And what if he doesn't sign? Then I'll be advised to go to court and file a complaint. And what are you hoping for? Well, that's what I'm hoping, that he won't sign my application. So you want to go back to Louis? No, Louis is my backup airfield in case something goes wrong. And when you don't need him? Who? Backup airplane. I don't know. Would you mind if I used it? Why would I mind? But it's only a long shot and it'd be nice if no one else would take it. But don't let Antonio catch you. Stay calm. Besides, I've got a boyfriend in my life right now. Nothing serious yet, he's married, but he stays with me at work. And he's such an interesting man. So I don't have far-reaching plans for Louis, and I can't. 2 days later, Helga started her new job. Louis invited her to his place along with the chief engineer, and they spent an hour coordinating their actions on the contract bidding. Pedro's memo on the project documentation was also a great help. The client, in an effort to cheapen the cost of work on the facility, had ordered the design himself. The designers had committed a number of gross irregularities that had not been detected by the client, and in the course of the work it would cost them a lot of unrecorded costs. Pedro suggested leaving the design as it is, but entering into an additional agreement to finalize the design. They knew the customer was pressed for time, and they would agree to this. The other competitors did not have their own designers. After the meeting was over, Pedro left for his office. Helga said, "They say you have a new girlfriend. Who is she?" "I don't know. She's been watching you every day at the cafe on her lunch hour." "Who told you that?" "I don't care." "Look, you've only been on the job for 2 hours. And I was brought up to speed and told who's who. So who's the diva?" "Gloria, she's from the office across the street. They have their own cafe." Except she's been coming over to our place. Gloria, is that a friend of your wife's? I know her in passing. She's having an affair with her coworker Rodrigo. How do you know? Did you hear about it here too? No. Rodrigo's wife is a friend of mine, she told me. I see. Here you go. What's this? Gloria's husband's cell phone. Name's Antonio. He's about the size of a side door. Former boxer. Bantamweight. Bantamweight doesn't mean anything to me. He's Olympic qualified at 81 pounds. What, you used to box too? Yes, I did, but at middleweight, which is 75 kilograms. But I can see you've been blown away. A little bit. All right for Antonio's phone, thanks. After lunch, Luis got a call from Carlos asking, "How are you? Are you doing okay?" "Yeah, slowly. How are you? How's your health?" "They're pouring a lot of drugs into me. They only have time to change the IVs, so I can't wait to get to my room. That's why I'm calling. I bought a plot of land in a cottage community at the auction, and I'm kind of stalled on that. And here a friend informed me if for 3 years the owner has not used the land of the category of individual housing construction for the construction of housing, and the plot stands abandoned, the state can appoint a procedure of withdrawal. And what do you suggest?" "I'll start the procedure and reissue the plot to you. I know your apartment is in the city, it's in your parents' name. You deposit money from your account to the company's account, draw up a contract, and start construction of 0 cycles there. You need a project for that. Go to our design department. Pick one. Just pick a good one. Your neighbor across the fence is the mayor, so don't let it get you down. It's all kind of sudden. A construction project like this costs money. What's the matter with you, no wife now, living alone?" "Carlos, I can deal with a woman, but I'm not going to have enough time to deal with a noose around my neck in the form of a mortgage. You take someone else's money, and not much, but you pay back your own, and the interest is so high, you'll have enough for 3 more apartments. It's not time for me to take a plot of land. My wife is building a house in the divorce. I'll have to pay 50% interest, but I have to do something. I'll offer it to Helga. She still lives with her parents. They might have some money." Luis and Helga went to see the property. Helga immediately rejected the idea of a mortgage and said, "Today I'll decide with my parents. Maybe a little is not enough, but I'll find it." "Helga, I can lend you a little." "How much is a little?" 50% of the construction costs." "For how many years?" "As long as you can pay me back." "How do you know how much my house costs?" "The design department told me what you picked out." "Oh, Luis, I forgot to tell you. Beatriz called Antonio." "Beatrice who? Antonio who?" "Beatrice, a friend of mine. Her husband's been hitting on Gloria, and they've been having a big, passionate love affair." "I remember that." "She found out that Rodrigo had a reservation at a motel outside of town for 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when lunch is over." "Yeah, she called Antonio and drove there herself. The expected couple entered the motel cafe at exactly 14 o'clock. And before that, in the morning at home, Beatriz added to the thermos with tea diuretic that her husband takes to work." "So he didn't make it to the motel?" "No, he did, but he went straight to the bathroom, and Antonio was waiting for him, and ruined everything." "Who messed up?" "Antonio. She wanted to go to the restroom with Antonio and sit at Gloria's table and wait for him. But Antonio had a little bump with Rodrigo in the restroom. They say 2 stalls in the men's room piled up. Then he went to the tables and told Gloria, 'You don't have to come home.' And what did Gloria say?" "Gloria didn't say anything. She was in a trance. After all, when Beatriz sat down at her table, she immediately told her that she was Rodrigo's wife. Gloria didn't have time to digest that." "Where is she now?" "I don't know." "Didn't she call you?" "What's that got to do with me?" "Well, maybe she's crying. She's got mother here. I think she's staying with her. She won't go to Antonio's house. I think I'll meet him tonight." Luis kept his word, and after work he met Antonio. He was walking leisurely toward his house. Luis called out to him, "Antonio, hi. How are you?" "Hello, Luis. How are you?" "I'm fine. What's up?" "You know, Gloria has a boyfriend at work. She's following Liliana's lead. Maybe she's following her lead. I just found out about it, so at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I caught them at a cafe in the hotel. What did he say? He didn't have time. He tore down the partitions in the men's room, and he just lay there. And I told Gloria to stay out of the apartment. Where is she? She's holed up at her mother-in-law's. Her mother-in-law called, crying, begging me to forgive her. And she said she called your mother-in-law. She's coming to town this week to file for divorce, and her boyfriend will be with her. Liliana's gone quiet somewhere out of our area. How does the mother-in-law know? She overheard the conversation. So Gloria told her all about you. Why don't we go get a drink? I'd love to, but I'm spending the night in the village. Something wrong. I'm doing some major remodeling. Didn't you have a good thing going? It was what Liliana wanted, but did I want it? So you don't have a place to stay, but you can stay at my place. Come to my place. We'll sit and talk. We'll make kebabs. Shish kebab. In the apartment. Yeah, I have an electric kebab maker. I marinated the meat. Come on, let's sit down. Louis and Antonio got in the car and drove off. They did not know that Gloria was watching them from behind the kiosk and wanted to intercept her husband on the way home from work. When she realized that she would not be able to talk to Antonio face to face, she wandered dejectedly to her mother's house. When she got home, her mother inquired, "Have you seen Antonio?" I didn't have time. Louis intercepted him. So call him. I'll call him tomorrow morning. The phone rang. It was Liliana. Hi, Gloria. Did you get back to Antonio? No, I'm at my mom's. How's your lover? He's at his mom's too, and he doesn't go to work. He doesn't call me. I called him and he didn't pick up. Why doesn't he go to work? He's got a big light under his eye, and the receptionist said he mailed in his resignation letter. I don't get it. How could you get so screwed up? I thought you told me you were so sneaky, and now you're living at your mom's. I'm definitely not going back to my mom's. Where are you going to go? To an alternate airfield. To Louis. Your Louis is at Antonio's right now. It's simple. They'll drink and suffer. I'll be in town tomorrow morning with Santiago. I'll file an application to see how much Louis loves me. What if he says yes? Then he doesn't love me very much, but I'll think of a way to tie him down. Louis and Antonio were sitting at the table talking about life, and Antonio asked, "Tell me, what do I do now?" You know, I can't advise you here. It's your life. But it turns out that physically she didn't cheat, and flirting can be viewed in different ways. Some say it's emotional cheating, but that's the way men are. They flirt with everyone. No, there are men who don't, but not many. It's the same with women. And the age of 40 is what they call a midlife crisis. So, you think Liliana's having a midlife crisis, and you're expecting her back, and you'll take her in. Antonio, that's a lot of questions. Time will tell. The next day, after 11 o'clock, Louis' phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. He answered and immediately recognized the voice. It was Liliana. I'm listening. I want to apologize for leaving you like this. I know I hurt you a lot, but I didn't want to deceive you. It's just that I fell in love with someone else, and I decided to leave you for him. You could have just told me by phone, like you're doing now. I realize you still want something. I want to release you and end our marriage, without scandal or fuss. What do you want me to do? I filed for divorce at our registry office. You just have to go there with your passport and sign the papers. Then, within a month, we'll be divorced. Louis' answer sounded like sweet music to Liliana, he replied. I'll think about it. Good, think about it. After that, she hung up the phone, noting for herself that she would have to call the registry office in 2 weeks, and if Louis agreed to the divorce, to withdraw the application. She decided for herself that she would not force the divorce, but she had to show Santiago her love for him. And the explanation was very simple. When the euphoria of the first days passed, she began to notice that Santiago is not very fond of inner-city businessmen with whom he socialized, and with whom he introduced Liliana. 1953 were quite wary of him. Although Santiago did have a small circle of people with whom he discussed all of his deals, but he kept Liliana out of it. Gradually, Liliana became disillusioned. She realized that her life would not be filled with happiness next to Santiago. He was somehow pragmatic, building his system of actions and views on life in the aspect of obtaining practically useful results. As a consequence, he was also predictable. Liliana began to realize that she had been very hasty when she made the decision to leave her husband, as it seemed to her, then, once and for all. And then came the full sobering realization. And 2 weeks after the application to the registry office, before lunch, the police entered the cottage with a search warrant. The servants from the cottage had suddenly disappeared. Liliana was detained, and after a search of the cottage, she was taken to the police station. When asked what she was accused of, it was explained to her that she was accused of raiding or illegal seizure of someone else's property. In practice, your actions will be qualified under the article fraud. In addition to this article, other articles of the criminal code will be applied on the totality of articles. But this is after assessing the actions of the raiders and your accomplices. Liliana realized that her beloved Santiago was not the man he claimed to be. She was promised, "We'll look into it," but then she was arrested. Indeed, after dealing with her, the investigation concluded that she was not involved in the raid, and she was released 10 days later. She was immediately asked to leave the cottage and was allowed to take her belongings as compensation. She packed her belongings in the same boxes in which she had brought them when she ran away from her husband. She moved everything to her parents' house. She settled there herself. When the turmoil subsided, she remembered the registry office and called there. They told her, "Everything is in order. The decision was positive. Your already ex-husband paid the fee and received a divorce certificate." Liliana dialed Larissa, asked, "Listen, how's it going with you?" "I don't know yet. I managed to meet Antonio and talk. Tomorrow I meet him again, on neutral territory, in a cafe." So, there are prospects for reconciliation. There are prospects, but I can't say anything yet. How's Louis doing? I haven't seen him in a while, but he's CEO now, and their firm is the best in the neighborhood and the region. That's great. Did he redecorate the apartment yet? Does he live there? I think so. I'm going to visit him tomorrow after work. Why? You can't imagine. That Santiago was a con man. He put me in jail for 10 days. You were in jail? Yeah, that's crazy. So what now? I'm staying with my mom. I moved all my stuff in with her. But you said you'd never do that. So I figured it's time to go to an alternate airfield. I hope you don't have a runway there. What are you talking about? All I can think about is getting Antonio back, and I haven't seen Louis for a long time. He doesn't even go to the cafeteria for lunch. That's good. I'll take him home tomorrow night. I'll get him warm. Louis arrived home after work and started cooking dinner when the bell rang. He looked at his watch and muttered to himself. It was too early. He opened the door. Liliana stood on the doorstep. She said politely, "Hello, Louis. Can I come in?" "Hello. Come in." Liliana took off her outer clothes, noticed her slippers, put them on. She followed Louis into the kitchen and sat down on the chair he offered her. Louis asked, "Would you like to have dinner?" "I wouldn't mind." "Where are you staying?" "Nowhere yet. You know I don't live in the city." "I guessed. I've got a room booked at a hotel. And for dinner, if you feed me, I won't say no. But first I want to talk to you." "Talk? About what?" "I realized I'd made a mistake. I had an epiphany. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. You've been my rock. I was used to having you as my rock. I thought Santiago would give me security and confidence in the future, but that hasn't turned out to be the case. So you want to go back because you're afraid of being alone, or because you don't see Santiago as your rock. How did he take it, by the way?" "I left him a long time ago, and I'm living with my mom. I'm here because it took me a while to realize my mistake and realize how stupid I was when I decided to split up. Say, the con man who was exposed in the regional center, named Santiago, is not your Santiago by any chance." "Yeah, that's him. I mean, the ship of your prosperity hit the rocks and went down. But the thing is, as it turns out, I can live without you, but you can't without me. That's why I came back. Louis, let's not get heated. I know I hurt you, but let's talk about the details and figure out how to reboot our relationship. You're asking for a second chance. You got that right. Don't you think you're too late?" Too late. For how long? Your train left the moment you went to Santiago's cottage after the restaurant. There was a noise in the hallway. Someone opened the front door and entered the apartment. After another minute, Helga entered the kitchen. She said hello to Liliana and said, "I wondered where my slippers had gone. Louis, why haven't you set the table? Liliana, will you be joining us for dinner or not?" "Yes, I am, but I just finished cooking. I'll set the table and open a bottle of wine. By the way, Liliana, I'd like you to meet my Helga. Although you might know her, she was also at that conference in the region." Louis walked out of the kitchen. Liliana asked, "So you were the one who informed Louis about what happened?" "I dated Louis before you, and I loved him. Unfortunately, life separated us. I went to study abroad. He was already married to you, but you lost him. How long have you lived here?" "He called me to his office the day he received your divorce certificate and asked me to marry him. I accepted. I've been living with him ever since, and yes, we applied for a registry office." Louis came with the wine, opened the bottle deftly, poured the wine into glasses. Liliana drank the sweet wine, and it seemed bitter. She realized that she was a stranger here. In this house, she had lost everything. Taking a light snack, Liliana hailed a cab. Half an hour later, Liliana was driving towards the train station for the evening train going to the regional center. No one was holding her. The alternate airfield would not take her. After she left, Louis told Helga, "And the main thing for me was to do nothing. If I had resisted, she would have just dragged out the divorce. And God forbid she found out I was jumping for joy after she left. She'd be back that very day." Eventually, Louis and Helga got married. A year later, they had a son. Another year later, they moved into their cottage. Liliana went to the regional center and lived in an apartment with her parents. She got a job in her specialty. She did not keep in touch with Santiago, although he wrote to her. Santiago was sentenced to 12 years in prison. He needed her as a purse and a scapegoat. That's why he turned his eyes on her. But it didn't work out. He just didn't have enough time to reissue the seized property to her, then sell it and make off with the money. During the investigation, he said that the whole idea of the raid belonged to her, but she was in the shadows. After her parents died, Liliana started living with a man, a widower, but it was out of desperation. She just didn't want to go back to an empty apartment in the evenings. Gloria spent another 6 months convincing her husband to forgive her. She swore that she would cut all ties with Liliana, and that there would be no flirting with men. But Antonio didn't forgive her. He filed for divorce. He said people don't change, and he has no desire to walk around with horns. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.